Chapter 5. Use of the Key. Having now firmly fixed the interpretation of the prophecy concerning the harlot Babylon, and the ten-horned beast that carrieth her, by means of the detailed and definite explanations of their meaning contained in the 17th chapter of Revelation, and by their fulfillment in the course of history, we proceed to use this interpreted vision as a key to open the remaining visions in the Apocalypse. For such is the connection of the various visions in the book, that the opening of its central vision is a manifest clue to the meaning of the whole. This method of interpreting the Apocalypse is not new. It is adopted and advocated in Mead's Key of the Revelation, published in 1643. Addressing the reader, he says, "Lest haply thou mayest doubt whether anywhere in the Revelation out of all those visions such may be found in which thou mayest safely pitch thy foot, and from whence, as it were, from a station or watchtower, thou mayest take the scantling of the rest of the Revelation. Behold, provision made for this thing also by the Holy Spirit's most wise counsel. In that famous vision of the great whore, which only and alone of all the visions the angel interpreteth to John. But to what end? Except that by that an entrance be opened as it were through a door to the rest, otherwise inaccessible. What wilt thou more? Therefore by this way enter thou, calling upon the Father of lights, and being entered use the key of entry to the opening of the rest. 1. Identity of the beast. We have seen that in the interpreted vision contained in Revelation 17, the ten-horned wild beast power represents the Roman Empire, and the harlot Babylon the Church of Rome. 2. Three visions of the beast power. There are three visions in the Apocalypse of the ten-horned wild beast power. First vision of the wild beast. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Revelation 12, verses 3 and 4. Second vision of the wild beast. And I saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his heads 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. Revelation 13, verses 1 and 2. Third vision of the wild beast. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Revelation 17, verse 3. 3. The same great power, the Roman Empire. The three visions of the wild beast are visions of the same great power, the Roman Empire. 1. The three visions must refer to the same wild beast power. The identity of their leading features justifies this conclusion. The wild beast in each of the visions has 7 heads and 10 horns. There cannot be more than one such power. 2. Since the interpreted vision, chapter 17, establishes the conclusion that this 7 headed, 10 horned wild beast represents the Roman Empire, the three visions must be visions of the Roman Empire. 3. This conclusion is confirmed by the identity of the 10 horned beast of the Apocalypse with the fourth wild beast of the visions of Daniel, which we have already seen symbolizes the Roman Empire. Some have held that the first 4 heads of the draconic power in Revelation 12 represent kingdoms which preceded the Roman Empire, and some that the beast of Revelation 13 represents the 4 empires. Both these views we hold to be erroneous, but even if correct, both the dragon of chapter 12 and beast of chapter 13 would include the Roman Empire itself as a chief part of the thing symbolized. 4. Successive stages. The three visions of the wild beast power represent successive stages in the history of the Roman Empire. 1. The vision in chapter 12 represents the Roman Empire under the regency of its 7 heads, for in this vision the heads are crowned with diadems. 2. The vision in chapter 13 represents the Roman Empire under the regency of its 10 horns and of its 8th revived head, for the horns are crowned with diadems. 3. The vision in chapter 17 represents the Roman Empire and its ten-horned or divided state, first as carrying, then as casting off, wasting, and destroying the harlot Babylon the Great. In the vision, no crowns are seen on the heads or horns. Their leading features justify the view that the three visions in chapters 12, 13, and 17 of the wild beast power represent the Roman Empire in the successive stages of its early progress, its central development, and its later decline. 5. Two principal stages. The history of the wild beast power is divided into two principal stages by the wounding to death and subsequent healing of the seventh head, Revelation chapter 13. The first is the draconic stage of its existence and represents the Roman Empire up to the date of its overthrow by the Goths and Vandals, a revolution completed in AD 476. The second may be termed the false prophet stage of its history, the stage in which its power is wielded by a second beast, of lamb-like form but draconic in speech, Revelation 13, called in chapter 19 the false prophet. In the restoration of the empire thus affected, the deadly wound inflicted by the Gothic overthrow is healed. The following passage from the pen of Dr. Dolinger, whose acquaintance with the history of the Church of Rome is such as to make him an authority on the subject, exhibits strikingly that restoration of the Roman Empire under its papal head which succeeded the Gothic overthrow. Out of the chaos of the great northern migrations and the ruins of the Roman Empire, there gradually arose a new order of states whose central point was the papal see. Therefrom inevitably resulted a position not only new, but very different from the former. The new Christian empire of the West was created and upheld by the Pope. The Pope became constantly more and more, by the state of affairs, with the will of the princes and of the people, and through the power of public opinion, the chief moderator at the head of the European Commonwealth, and as such he had to proclaim and defend the Christian law of nations, to settle international disputes, to mediate between princes and peoples, and to make peace between belligerent states. The Curia became a great spiritual and temporal tribunal. In short, the whole of Western Christendom formed in a certain sense a kingdom, at whose head stood the Pope and the Emperor, the former, however, with continually increasing and far preponderating authority. This ruin and subsequent rise of Rome is thus referred to by the historian Gibbon. About the close of the 6th century, Rome had reached the lowest period of her depression. By the removal of the seat of empire and the successive loss of the provinces, the sources of public and private opulence were exhausted. The lofty tree under whose shade the nations of the earth had reposed was deprived of its leaves and branches, and the sapless trunk was left to wither on the ground. Like Thebes or Babylon or Carthage, the name of Rome might have been erased from the earth if the city had not been animated by a vital principle which again restored her to honor and dominion. Under the noonday of papal dominion which followed, Rome inspired all the terror of her ancient name. She was once more the mistress of the world, and kings were her vassals. 6. The deadly wound and the hindering power. The infliction of the deadly wound on the ruling power of the Western Empire is identical with the removal of the hindering or withholding power referred to in Paul's prophecy of the man of sin. The link between the Thessalonian prophecy and the Apocalypse is of great importance. It is admitted by both Protestant and Roman Catholic interpreters that St. Paul's man of sin and St. John's Antichrist are the same. But the rise of the man of sin is preceded by the removal of a hindering power which was in existence in Paul's own day, and to which he referred in carefully guarded language, a power which the early church recognized as that of imperial Rome. And similarly, the rise of the anti Christian persecuting power in the Apocalypse is preceded by the removal of ruling power in the Roman state. The conclusion is that the hindering power removed in each case is the same. It is a remarkable fact, in relation to the let or hindrance to the manifestation of the man of sin, that we have the consenting testimony of the early fathers. From Irenaeus, the disciple of St. John, down to Chrysostom and Jerome, to the effect that it was understood to be the imperial power ruling and residing at Rome. Thus, commenting on the words, "Ye know what detaineth that he might be revealed in his time," Tertullian says, What obstacle is there with the Roman state, the falling away of which, by being scattered into 10 kingdoms, shall introduce Antichrist, that the beast Antichrist, with his false prophet, may wage war on the church of God? Here the Thessalonian and apocalyptic prophecy are in a remarkable way connected together and interpreted, and this long prior to their historic fulfillment. As to the fact that the removal of the imperial power made way for the rise of the popes, Cardinal Manning's testimony is important. In his work on the temporal power of the popes, he says, now the abandonment of Rome was the liberation of the pontiffs. Whatsoever claims to obedience the emperors may have made, and whatsoever compliance the pontiff may have yielded, the whole previous relation, anomalous, and annulled again and again by the vices and outrages of the emperors, was finally dissolved by a higher power. The providence of God permitted a succession of eruptions, Gothic, Lombard, and Hungarian, to desolate Italy and to efface from it every remnant of the empire. The pontiffs found themselves alone, the sole fountains of order, peace, law, and safety, and from the hour of this providential liberation, when by a divine intervention the chains fell off from the hands of the successor of St. Peter, as once before from his own, no sovereign has ever reigned in Rome except the Vicar of Jesus Christ. 7. The beast in Babylon central to apocalyptic prophecy. The story of the beast in Babylon, or of the Roman Empire and Church of Rome, occupies a considerable and central portion of the apocalyptic prophecy. Either the beast or Babylon are distinctly referred to in no less than 10 successive chapters: 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. The following are the principal passages in these chapters in which one or other of these two great anti Christian powers are spoken of. 1. Chapter 11, verse 7. When they, the two witnesses, shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascendeth out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them, and kill them. This is the same as the beast that was, and is not, and yet is, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. Chapter 17, verse 8. 2. Chapter 12, verse 3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns or diadems upon his heads. The rest of the chapter is taken up with the warfare waged by this draconic power against those who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. 3. Chapter 13, verse 1. And I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns 10 diadems, and upon his heads names of blasphemy. Revised Version. The chapter relates the wounding to death and healing again of one of the heads of the wild beast, his war with the saints, and his overcoming them, and the action of a second beast with 2 horns like unto a lamb, who spoke as a dragon, and exercised the authority of the first beast in his sight, making an image of the beast, and causing it to speak, and compelling all to worship it, and to receive its mark on their right hand and on their forehead. 4. Chapter 14, verses 9 through 12. And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation. And he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels, and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever. And they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God in the faith of Jesus. 5. Chapter 15, verses 1 through 4. And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. And I saw as it were a sea of glass mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. And they sang the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb, saying, great and marvelous are thy works, Lord God Almighty. Just and true are thy ways, thou King of saints. Who shall not fear thee, O Lord, and glorify thy name? For thou only art holy. For all nations shall come and worship before thee, for thy judgments are made manifest. 6. Chapter 16, verses 1 and 2. And I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the seven angels, Go your ways, and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. And there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them which worshipped his image. Verses 10 and 11. And the fifth angel poured out his vial upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom was full of darkness, and they gnawed their tongues for pain, and blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores, and repented not of their deeds. Verses 17 through 19. And the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne, saying, It is done. And there were voices, and thunders, and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake, and so great. And the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell, and great Babylon came in remembrance before God, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. 7. Chapter 17, verse 3. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman set upon a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Verses 7 through 11. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was, and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains, on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was, and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. 8. Chapter 18, verses 1 through 5. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird. All nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues, for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her iniquities. 9. Chapter 19, verses 1 through 3. And after these things I heard a great voice of much people in heaven, saying, Alleluia! Salvation and glory and honor and power unto the Lord our God. For true and righteous are his judgments. For he hath judged the great whore, which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. And again they said, Alleluia! And her smoke rose up for ever and ever. Verses 19 through 21. And I saw the beast, and the kings of the earth, and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse, and against his army. And the beast was taken, and with them the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped the image. These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone, and the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceeded out of his mouth, and all the fowls were filled with their flesh. 10. Chapter 20, verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus, and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads, or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Verse 10. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night for ever and ever. 8. These visions fall into 3 divisions. The visions contained in these 10 successive chapters fall into three divisions, connected with the three great stages in the history of the empire. 1. The visions relating to the Empire of Rome under the dominion of its crowned heads. This includes the description of the draconic power and of its persecuting action in chapter 12, and also the period referred to in the interpretation of the heads of the wild beast in chapter 17. 5 are fallen, and one is, and the other is not yet come, and when he cometh, he must continue a short space. It is clear from this interpretation of the angel in chapter 17 that the wild beast or Roman Empire was under the dominion of its sixth head in the time of St. John. Three notes of time relating to the past, the present, and the future occur in the explanatory words of the angel. He declares that at the date when the apocalypse was revealed to John, 5 of the successive heads of the wild beast power were past. The sixth was in existence, the seventh was in the future. What was the form of government of the Roman Empire in the time of the apostle? Evidently the rule of its heathen emperors. This, then, is represented by the sixth head of the wild beast. 2. The vision relating to the Roman Empire under the dominion of its 10 horns and revived eighth head. This includes the vision of the woman in the wilderness hidden from the persecuting dragon during 3.5 times or 1260 days, chapter 12. That of the two witnesses who prophesy in sackcloth for 1260 days and are slain by the wild beast from the abyss, and of the treading down of the outer court of the temple for 42 months, chapter 11. And that of the persecuting action of the wild beast under its revived eighth head during 42 months, chapter 13. The connection of these visions is evident from the equality of their times, for 1260 days are 42 months, and 42 months are 3.5 times or prophetic years, and also from the fact that these equal times are reckoned from the same general period or era and extend to the same termination. Thus, the times of the beast, chapter 13, and of the witnesses are equal, 1260 days or 42 months, and finish together at the end of the sixth trumpet. The seventh trumpet brings the ruin of the beast. The times of the beast, 42 months, and of the woman dwelling in the wilderness, 1260 days or 3.5 times, chapter 12, are equal and begin at the same point of time, viz., the conquest of the dragon and his being cast down to the earth, chapters 12 and 13. It is on the casting down of the dragon that the woman flies from his persecuting action to the wilderness, chapter 12. And is after being thus cast down that the wild beast rises again through the healing of its deadly wound and persecutes the saints, chapter 13. The starting point in each case is the same. In a word, the periods of 1260 days, 42 months, or 3.5 times, relating to 1. The woman remaining in the wilderness, chapter 12. 2. The seven-headed beast restored, chapter 13. 3. The outer court trodden under foot by the Gentiles, chapter 11. 4. The witnesses prophesying in sackcloth, chapter 11, are equal and commence or terminate with the same events. The visions in which they occur must consequently belong to one and the same general period in the history of the Roman Empire, the period of the empire in its revived 10 horn state, chapter 13. This conclusion groups together the visions in chapters 10 through 14 as relating to the same historic period, the period of the restored or papal Roman Empire. 3. The visions relating to the Roman Empire at the close of its 10 horn state under the dominion of the harlot Babylon, and especially to the crisis of the casting off and destruction of the harlot by the 10 horn beast which had carried her. The section containing these includes 6 chapters, chapters 15 through 20. The entire group of prophecies in chapters 15 through 19 relates to the overthrow and destruction of Babylon and the beast under the 7 vials of God's wrath, while the reference to the latter in chapter 20 is similar in its judicial character. The judgment of the apostate and persecuting political ecclesiastic power which has arisen in the sphere of the Roman Empire is the subject of these extended and important prophecies. 9. Connected and orderly whole. The 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 vials of the apocalyptic prophecy form a connected and orderly whole, the 7 trumpets falling under the 7th seal, and the 7 vials under the 7th trumpet. As the terminal trumpets and seven vials belong to the story of the ten-horned wild beast, the earlier trumpets and the seals must relate to the history of the same power. Connection of the wild beast power with the order of the trumpets and vials. 1. The slaughter of the witnesses by the wild beast power takes place at the close of the sixth trumpet. The following points should be noted in this relation. A. The three woes are those of the three last trumpets. I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the three angels which are yet to sound. Chapter 8, verse 13. B. In chapter 9, after the fifth trumpet has sounded, we read, One woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. Verse 12. C. The sixth trumpet then sounds, and at the close of its events, when the persecuting action of the wild beast power and the death and resurrection of the witnesses have been accomplished, we read, The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Chapter 11, verse 14. The slaughter of the witnesses under the sixth trumpet precedes the destruction of the beast under the seventh. 2. The beast and Babylon come to their end under the seven vials. The seven vials are called the seven last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. Chapter 15, verse 1. The seventh vial occupies a terminal position in relation to premillennial judgments. On its being poured out, the impressive declaration is made, It is done. The connection of these vials with the destruction of the beast and Babylon is plain and important. The first vial is poured on the worshippers of the beast. The fifth vial is poured on the seat of the beast, while Babylon is utterly destroyed under the seventh vial, and together with it the beast and the false prophet. 3. The seven trumpets are successive. Their chronological order is evident and undisputed. Hence, as the sixth and seventh trumpets belong to the times of the wild beast power, the earlier trumpets must refer to previous stages of the same. Connection of the trumpets and seals. The seventh seal is the seal of trumpets. On the opening of this seal, the seven angels of the seven trumpets go forth and sound the trumpets. Chapter 8. Hence, the seals, trumpets, and vials unfold one and the same historical order, the order of events connected with the history of the Roman Empire and Christian Church. Interpreted vision in chapter 17, the Rosetta Stone for deciphering the Apocalypse. The interpreted vision of the woman and the beast that carrieth her in Revelation 17 may be described as the Rosetta Stone which guides us to the meaning of the mysterious symbols of the Apocalypse. For many ages, the meaning of the Egyptian hieroglyphics was entirely unknown. Thousands of conjectures have been made as to the method of reading those symbols. Vast ingenuity had been exhausted. The hope was sometimes entertained that the clue had been discovered. But it was at last felt that all those proposed methods were fanciful, and the world had settled down in despair as to the possibility of deciphering their meaning. The accidental discovery of the Rosetta Stone and the patient labors of De Sacy, Akerblad, Tykson, and especially of Champollion have changed the views of the world on that subject, and the hieroglyphics of Egypt have become as intelligible as any other language. The divine explanation of the most central symbolical vision in the Apocalypse is the key to the meaning of the entire prophecy, and the interpretation thus given links the apocalyptic prophecy with the history of the Roman Empire and that of the Christian Church. The important position thus assigned to the Roman Empire in prophecy is fully justified by the place which it occupies in history, and especially by its relation to the kingdom of God. What that relation is, we have now in conclusion to consider.